What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new build. Today I have prepared something different for you. Today we're gonna build an application using React Native, as always, but this time instead of targeting mobile devices and building a iOS and Android application, what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a native macOS application using React Native. Yes, you heard it right. We're gonna use React Native, the framework that we love and we are using to build mobile applications. We're going to use it for developing a native application that will run on a macOS device. So this opens up the doors for a lot of opportunity for a lot of applications, and I'm really excited to show you how you can do that as well, how you can get started with React Native for macOS. This is thanks to the team from Microsoft, which forked the React Native package and made it compatible with macOS devices, also with Windows. So this package, Microsoft is internally using React Native to build a lot of features for their one of their most popular applications, like the Office suites and so on, like Excel. So yeah, that's a lot of power that React Native has when it comes to building native applications. All right, so let's roll the intro and we can get started. Hello everyone in the chat, how are you doing, guys? By the way, I have prepared the step-by-step guide, as I always do, and you can find it following the link in the description below. We're going to notjust.dev. And here under the blog, you can find the building a macOS application with React Native. So if we open here, we're going to have all the steps, all the documentations, resources that we're going to need to follow along this tutorial if you want to build it yourself. So I think we can get started and not waste any more time. From the prerequisites, what you will need is you will need the React Native environment set up. So you can follow the documentation from React Native website to set up the React Native CLI. In this project, we're not going to be able to use Expo, and I really, nowadays for all the projects I'm using Expo, and I got used to starting with Expo every time. And preparing this project, I went through some issues with React Native CLI, and I remember like, oh, that's why I'm using Expo. But yeah, the React Native macOS library at the moment of recording this video is not compatible with Expo, but I think it's going to be compatible in the near future because there is some collaboration between the teams to make it possible. So that's why we are going to use React Native CLI, and that's why we need the development environment set up for React Native development on macOS. So yeah, if you have everything set up, we can get started. You can go ahead and open the docs for the React Native macOS, and also I provided the repository. It's Microsoft at React Native macOS, which is a fork from Facebook React Native. So here in the documentation, you can find more details. I mean, the documentation is still not very extensive. It only shows like how to get started, but the process of getting started, I think, is really, really easy. And we're gonna see that in a moment. So to get started, let's open up a terminal and let's start initializing our fresh React Native project. We start from a fresh React Native project. So let me go to projects, YouTube. And after you navigate in a project, in a folder where you keep your projects, here we can go ahead and start initializing our React Native application. We're going to do that using npx React Native. We can do @latest to take the latest version of React Native. And let's initialize our let's say macOS reminders. That's going to be our application, or macOS application, even like that, macOS app. Don't press enter yet because we have to specify the version of React Native that we want to use when initializing this. And if we look in the documentation of React Native macOS, the latest stable version available for React Native macOS is 0.71. Here we can see the latest version of supported React Native version. So that's why we need to keep them in sync, and we need to use the 0.71. Later, if it's going to be updated, you can check and see which is the latest version supported by the macOS package, the React Native macOS, and use that for React Native as well. So we're going to use the caret at .70.0. And this way not 71, sorry, 71, yeah. Let's press enter, and this will initialize our application using the version code 071 of React Native. Let's wait for a bit until everything is installed. In my case, the next step is gonna fail. And I've spent so much time today trying to figure out why it fails. And I'm gonna actually leave it like this so you can see. And so far I haven't figured it out. It has to do something with my versions of Ruby or CocoaPods or something like that. But yeah, like, I spent so much time. I was so angry because I couldn't figure it out. And things like this happen, like especially with environment setup. Like I really hate everything that has to do with environment setup. I always wish like, hey, give me a working environment and I just want to build applications. I don't want to struggle with setting up environments, with going through versions, with incompatible versions and so on. And here is where that I was telling you about. So in my case, like if in your case everything is okay, which most probably should be, just continue with the next steps. For me, it stops at the installing bundler, and if for you as well you have this issue, which I really doubt, then what we have to do is let's open the project that was that was created, and we called it macOS application because the project actually was initialized almost completely successfully. The last step that failed for me was installing the iOS pods. So I'm gonna go into the iOS directory and I'm gonna do bundle install. Let's try to do it this way. And for me, in the previous step, it stopped at this installing JSON. And as you can see, like all of these are with white, which means that they are already installed, and the JSON and the next ones are installing right now. So for some reason, doing it this way, it works. Initializing with React Native init, it stops at this JSON. So yeah, it sucks, but at least I found a workaround that kind of works. So the next step is let's make sure that the pods are installed. So bundle exec pod install while we're still in the iOS directory to install the pods. And after that, everything is should be fine. But in order to make sure that it's actually fine, I'm gonna go one directory up in our directory, and I will open the project with Visual Studio Code. I have this code dot that opens this directory using Visual Studio Code. If you don't have that one, you can open Visual Studio Code and from there find the folder. So before I jump into the macOS step, I really want to make sure that this project is at least running because I had some issues with installing. So let's go ahead and do npm start to double check if everything is okay with our application. Here we see that Metro is at 0.73, but if we look at the package, the React Native is at the 0.71, the version that we want, so the Metro is okay to be at a higher version. So from this, let's go ahead and try to open it on an iOS device. We're gonna wait for a bit for it to install and set up on iOS, but that's gonna tell us like if at least the starter project is installed and configured correctly. So let's spend around 2 to 3 minutes, and then we can continue with the next steps to install the macOS plugin. Is it mandatory to use macOS? Yes, I think it is mandatory to use macOS. The same as building an iOS application using React Native CLI. You need to do it on a macOS device because you need the Xcode. The same way here when building for macOS, because we are using React Native CLI, we need Xcode that will handle the building process. If it would be possible to do it with Expo, and if Expo would provide some kind of Expo Go for macOS, in that situation, you would be able to build it on Windows as well, I imagine. But I'm not sure like what it would take. Like it probably would take a lot of effort to make it compatible with Expo. David is saying quite excited about this one. Yeah, me too. I found out about the React Native macOS a couple of months ago, and I just wanted to give it a try, and it was so easy. And I already had an application on macOS built with React Native. I was like, whoa, I need to do it, and now is the time for it. So yeah, the application is still bundling. I don't know why it opened on a iPhone SE version, but it's gonna be okay. So it's still building. How long it will take? One code for both macOS and Windows. Is it possible? To be honest, I haven't tried that, but I believe it is. Because the thing is that the application that we're gonna build today, this is very important. The application that we're gonna build today will target macOS, but not only macOS. We're gonna be able to run the same application on iOS. We're gonna be able to run it on Android and on web, for example. So that's why it's so powerful. Like we do not use it only for a specific platform. We are using to have one code base and to target multiple platforms at the same time. So by then we're gonna run the application both on natively on macOS, also on an iOS device, on a mobile phone, and also we'll try to do it on Android. So here we have the template that we get started with from React Native. Here we have welcome to React Native. Everything is running, everything is perfect. At this moment, we can stop the development server, we can close our simulator, and we are getting started with setting up for, this project, this empty React Native project, to work with React Native macOS. And to do that is super simple. Like the only thing you have to do is to run npx React Native macOS init, and this package will take care of every changes of everything in order to make this project compatible with macOS. You can find all of this, again, I'm gonna repeat myself, you'll find all of these commands here in the step-by-step guide that you can find in the link description below or on notjust.dev. You can find it there. And yeah, like basically just copy paste this one and put it in your command line inside your project and wait for a bit, and then your project is going to be ready to run on macOS. And Ankan, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate your support. So nice. So as we can see, everything has built successfully, has installed successfully, and what we have to do to run this on a macOS is to execute this command, npx React Native run macOS. Instead of doing it instead of running this command, let's add it to our package.json inside the scripts besides the Android and iOS. So let's add a new mac command, which will execute React Native, run macOS, and comma. Now what we can do is, first of all, we need the development server, as you would need it for iOS and Android, the Metro server. So let's run npm start in one of these terminals to start the development server. And let's open a new terminal to execute and run it on a macOS. And for that, we're going to run npm run mac. And let's see and wait if everything is running. This is like Electron.js. Look, I'm not sure how Electron.js was working. I think Electron.js was something similar to a web view, if I'm not mistaken. But here we're talking about like native components running natively. So there is a very interesting guide, Messenger macOS React Native. So Facebook moved from Electron, that's what you're talking about, yes, to React Native. They moved the Messenger desktop application, and the results were quite impressive. Let me highlight some of the things from here. Yeah, here we're talking about partnering with Microsoft. I cannot find here, but here, for example, uploading time after moving from Electron to React Native, the final binary size reduced over 100 megabytes both on macOS and Windows. The uploading time was reduced by 50% for the majority of users. Native crashes decreased 15% of macOS and, wait for it, 67% of Windows. So for some reason, Electron on Windows crashes a lot. I don't know why. But with React Native, we managed to decrease the crashes 67% on Windows. So that's just some of the stats of moving a native macOS application from Electron to React Native. And good news is that our application is already running, and you can see it here. Let me put it like this. So the same application, the welcome screen of React Native is running, but as you can see, this is a native macOS application. What you can do everything that you can do with a macOS application. You can scroll through it and you see everything there. So there is nothing much more for me to show at this moment, because it's as simple as that. In a blank React Native project, what we do is we execute a command npx React Native macOS init, and this package takes care of all the changes and all the migration that has to happen in order to target macOS. And what we can see here in our application, in our folder structure, is a new macOS folder. So we have Android one, which is the Android project, which you can open in Android Studio. The iOS one, which is targeting iOS, and also macOS, which is targeting macOS devices. So it's that simple. Let me go ahead and probably do a git status. And we're not stopping here. What we're going to do is we're going to try to build a real application for macOS devices. And I think that the best application that we can do to get started is the native application from macOS itself. Let me double check if I don't have anything there. The reminders application. So if we look, this is the reminders. This is an application that works natively on macOS, but it's also available on your mobile phone or on your iPhones. So this is a great application that we can use to show how we can share the same code base to target two different platforms. So before we do that, I really want to do a git init. Does it have an ignore? Yes, it has. So let's do git add, git commit. Yes, everything is ready. And before we do anything, let's go ahead and open our app.tsx. And first of all, let's just check if the fast refresh is working. So if I'm gonna change something here in the step 1 to hello world, it automatically updates here on our screen. Perfect. What I want to do now is inside our application, I really want to clean up all of the things that we see here. So what's gonna be the easiest? The easiest would be, basically we need to to delete everything. So from our return statement, let's delete everything from here inside our application. Above return statement, everything. We need just this function, maybe with a text hello. The component section, let's go ahead and delete it. We don't need it anymore. And at the top, when it comes to the imports, we can almost delete everything to have a very clean app.tsx that is going to be ready for us to start creating our application. So yeah, the default one is this structure for our application. Which one is better, Electron or React Native? Well, to be fair, I don't have experience with Electron, but I just show you a couple of statistics that Facebook managed to accomplish by moving from Electron to React Native. So let's go ahead, let's open our, maybe these reminders will help us. But I have created a screenshot in our guide. So this is the application that we want to develop. So the reminders, very similar to a to-do list application. What we have is at the bottom, we have an input box where we can write our reminders, our to-do list items, and so on. They appear in a list on the page. We can complete them, and at the top we see the number of reminders with some titles. So pretty simple, but at the same time it will allow us to build a useful and a real application for macOS. So because there is a lot of things going on, let's focus on the smallest things. And the smallest things on this page is rendering one reminder, the line of one reminder. And what is it made of? It's made of the, how's it called? The radio button on the left and the text of a reminder on the right. So let's do that. Actually, for the radio button, we can either implement it ourselves because it's not that complicated, or I decided to use UI library called React Native Paper. So you can go through their getting started guide documentation to see how we can install it. So let's go ahead and npm install React Native Paper in our application. React Native Paper. I think we also need the React Native safe area context, but let me double check if we don't have it already. So no, we don't have it. So let's go ahead and also install this safe area context. And to make sure that we install everything for iOS, let's run npx pod install. Let's see if it will work this way. Yeah, it looks like it worked. We actually need to also install and link the React Native vector icons, but I really don't feel like doing that. And it only is used for the back action on Android. So I'm gonna skip it, knowing that I'm gonna receive a warning about React Native vector icons. That's another thing that I love about Expo, like vector icons are working by default. With React Native, you have to install, set up, link, and so on. Don't want to do it right now. So now that we have the React Native paper, what we can do is from there, we can import a component, React Native paper, radio button. Now, inside our application, let's wrap actually our whole component. Let's put it inside a view. So let's put it like that. And this view is going to be our page or the main container. Then we're going to have another container that will represent our item, because inside it we don't have only a text, we also have the radio button. Let's make sure to import view from React Native here. The view is not styles, it's style. And for the radio button, what do we need to send there? We need to send the value. So the value can be this value that we see on the screen. And that's it. We already see something on the screen there. Not sure if you can see it, or I'm not sure if I can zoom in. No, I cannot zoom in. Zoom. No, not like that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can zoom in a native window font. No, okay. So it's there. Okay, let's apply a couple of more styles. For example, for this view is going to be our item. So let's do styles.item, a reminder item. The text itself is going to be styles.item title. Okay, so what do we have? We have this container for styling the whole page. We have an item, and we have an item title. So for the container, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add some padding to make sure that there is space around the sides. Unexpected token. Where there is an unexpected token. Here at the end, yes. Okay, now I see it. And I can also do a background color that is similar to the one from the reminders application. And in order to make sure that the whole page is with this background, we need to make sure that this container expands to the whole page. To expand it, we're going to do flex 1 to make sure that it takes the whole space here. And yeah, that's it with styling our page. Now, styling our item, what do we have here? We want to make sure that the radio button and the text are on the same line. So let's do flex direction row. Perfect. We also want to make sure that they are aligned on the center. So align items center, we'll put them onto the same line. What else? When there will be more of these items, we should have a way to move it to our screen here, just for us to see the example of the reminders application. So as you can see, there is a line between the two items. So for that reason, we can do that with border bottom width of the smallest one, which we can access by stylesheet dot hairline width. And let's give it a color, border, simply border color. Can be, I don't know, a light gray. That's too much. I think I prepared a lighter color. For this one, yeah, that looks a bit better. I think you can go even darker for it, but I'm not gonna stop at these small details. And to make sure that this item has some space inside it, let's add also some padding. Vertical 5. Yes, now it looks better. It has some room to breathe. All right, for the item title, what we want, basically we don't want anything at this moment. I think it's okay how it is right now. So with that being said, if I'm gonna delete the second one, we have created the code that can render one item. Now having this JSX that can render one item, let's go ahead and take it to the next step and render a list of items. So what we're gonna need for that? We're gonna need to, first of all, we're gonna need to define a state variable where we're gonna store all the reminders that we want to render. So for that, from React, let's go ahead and import use state. I can also leave a React, no worries. Now, at the top of our application, we can define the state variable for our reminders and set reminders. We define it using the useState hook, and here we can initialize with an empty array like this. But because we are using TypeScript in this application, we can take it a step further and define like what is going to be the type of these reminders. For that, all we have to do is, why do we have this import here? I don't know. For that, all we have to do is to define, first of all, the type of one reminder. So reminder, and not with capital, but type reminder equal to. What will a reminder have? First of all, it will have a title, which is going to be a string. And also it will have completed to know if the title is completed or not. Now we can use this reminder type and specify that this state variable is going to be an array of reminders. So not simply a reminder, but an array of them. Now we're gonna know that these reminders, they are an array of reminders. It's gonna be helpful in a moment. So now that we have a state and we have these reminders, let's grab some dummy data from the website. So if you scroll down a bit, I have prepared for you some default reminders here, just for us to see without having to go through the next steps first. So let's copy them at the top here, default reminders, and let's provide them instead of this empty array. Let's define the default reminders as the initial state of our state, initial state of our state variable. Yeah. So now having a list of an array of reminders, knowing how to render one reminder, to render a list of them, what we need is a flat list from React Native. So let's go ahead and grab it from here. And what I'm gonna do also is I'm gonna extract these rendering one items into a separate function called render item. And this render item will return the JSX for one item. Now, having this function there, inside our main container here, we can use a flat list. A flat list needs two properties. One of them is the data. So the data should be an array of things that we want to render. In our case, these are our reminders. And it also needs a render item function. And this render item function is exactly the render item function that we define on top. So if I'm going to put that, we already see 3 items rendered on our screen, because in our default reminders, we have 3 of them. The problem at this moment is that we are not yet rendering them dynamically. All of them are saying hello because our title here is hard-coded. So to get the reminder that we are currently rendering here, this render item function will receive a couple of properties. So let's destructure them. One of them is the item and another is the index. So this item can be used as the item.title. And we see it there. And for the radio button as well, we can provide the title of item.title. View like this. And another property of this radio button is going to be the checked or not, so status, right? So the status can receive checked or unchecked. How do we understand if the item is checked or unchecked? Well, we're going to look at the completed. So if item.completed, then our radio button will be checked, otherwise it will be unchecked. So now all of them are unchecked, but if I'm going to change one of these, for example, be happy to true, and we also need to somehow refresh it. Let's try to press R here to reload. We see that the radio button is checked. We can also adjust the color using color property, and I'm going to use royal blue. And yeah, that's how it is here. Perfect. I like it so far. The TypeScript is still complaining that it doesn't understand what type is this item and index, but we know exactly what type they are going to be, so we can provide the types after these double dots. So we can say that the item is going to be a reminder and the index is going to be a number. We don't need the index yet, but we're going to need it in a moment. So now TypeScript understands that this item is actually a reminder, and there is a title with and also completed, which is Boolean and so on. Okay, the next step is to complete items when we press on them. So for that, first of all, we need to detect press events. So we can either, so this press events will be either on the radio button, and this radio button has on press event, or on the text. But what I say is, let's put it on the whole row. And whenever we press on this row, to check this, to complete this item as a whole. So for that reason, we need to encapsulate all of this component inside a component that can handle the on-press events. The view cannot do that. What I'm gonna do is, let's use either pressable, maybe a pressable, or a touchable opacity or something like that, and replace the root view of rendering one item with this pressable component. Now this pressable can have an on press event, which we can call what? Let's call a function that we will define in a moment, toggle completion for the task at this position, at this index. Now let's go ahead and implement this function, const toggle completion. It's going to receive the index, which is going to be a number. And what it should do is it should somehow update in our state our reminders to make sure that the reminder at position index is is basically toggled. If it's completed, it should be unchecked, and so on. So how can we do that? Well, one way would be to do reminders at position index dot completed then false. The problem with this is that our state variables should be immutable. We shouldn't update them directly here. What we should do is we should create a copy of our state. Updated reminders is going to equal to reminders. Using the spread operator, we can create a copy of our state variable. Then we can do our changes on the copy itself. And I'm not going to turn it to false, but yeah, let's keep it false for now. And then we can set back our updated reminders like this. Now, if I'm going to select one of these, completed, if I'm going to select the be happy, it's going to turn back to false. If I'm going to press now, nothing is happening. But what we want to do is to toggle it. If it's false, we need to make it true. If it's true, we need to make it false. So to do that, I'm going to take the whole value here and I'm going to invert it. So that's going to invert from true to false and from false to true. Now, if I'm going to press on them, they are going to turn completed. And if I press again, they will be unselected. Why not using Tamagui for UI? I haven't worked with Tamagui, but I really want to give them a try. I met the creator of Tamagui at app.js. Super nice guy. So, we have the functionality of checking and unchecking the reminders and so on. Let's go ahead and go to the next step of adding new reminders to our list. For that, we're going to need, first of all, a state variable for our new reminder, because we need to keep track of what the user will be typing. So it's going to be a use state. Initially, it's going to be empty string. Then, for the text input, we're going to use the text input itself from React Native. So where we're going to render it? Well, after the flat list, let's render the text input. Now we're not going to see basically anything on our screen, but if we're going to first of all add a placeholder, for example, add a new reminder, we should already see it at the bottom here. If I'm going to write something, it happens. But we need to bind our state variable, new reminder, to this text input. And we need to bind in the following way. First of all, the value from our state variable will be the value of the text input. So new reminder will go to the value. And whenever the text input changes, it will fire the onChange text event. So when that happens, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the updated text to the setter, set new reminder. And this way, everything is still going to happen the same, but whenever we're going to submit this new reminder, we're going to be able to access it from the state, because the state is our source of truth. Let's maybe add some styles. Styles.input, and for the input, let's define it here. What should we do with this input? Maybe let's add some padding. 10, maybe a border width as well, a very small border, and maybe border color as well, this one. And border radius to make it a bit round, 5. Yeah, looks good. At least something. So the last step is how can we send this new reminder to the list? Well, for that we need a new function called add reminder that will, let's say, console warn adding reminder. Sorry for that. And I want to also show the text that we want to add. So when do we call it? We can add a button and call it when we press that button, or we can simply do on submit editing. We can call this add reminder. And this function on the text input will be called whenever we press enter. So we see here adding reminder and the value of our text input. Perfect. So what should happen here in the add reminder? First of all, we need to in a similar way as we did with toggle completion, we need to create a copy of our existing reminders. But this copy, what we want to do is, after all the existing reminders, I want to add a new one here. And the new one should have a title, and the title will be the value of our text input, the new reminder, and the completed is going to be false. Now, let's go ahead and set not set new reminder, but set reminders with the updated reminders, like that. Okay. After we set any state, we can reset our state the value of our new reminder. We can reset it to empty string. Now, if I'm gonna do enter here, all of a sudden our item goes there, and I can write more, and I can write more, and so on. I think if I just press enter, it will still go here. So we should double check if new reminder dot trim is equal to empty string, then let's return. Let's not do anything here. So now if I'm gonna do enter, nothing is gonna happen. Even space enter, nothing is gonna happen because trim will remove them. And if I have some text, it will add it here. And maybe the title itself can also be trimmed. So if we have a lot of spaces at the beginning and then some text, it's going to remove the spaces around the item. Awesome, perfect. Now to make it more beautiful, we can add the title for the reminder and the number of reminders, and that's going to be just above our flat list. So let's go ahead and add there two text box. Because they need to be in the same line, I'm going to wrap them inside a view, and the first text is going to be reminders. The second one should show how many reminders are there. So we can take it from the reminder state and we can access the length of that array. So now I see already here reminders 9, but what I want to do is, for example, in the style here, let's put them into the same row. So flex direction, row, and also let's spread them to the two sides of a screen. To do that, flex justify content, space between, we'll move a 9 to the right side here. And let's go ahead and add some styles. Styles.title. And the same one for the second one. This title, we can put it somewhere at the top. And it should just have a very large font size, like 32. A font weight bold. And also the color should be changed. Color royal blue. And just like that, I think it's quite close to the original reminders application. Maybe the view itself can have some margin vertical 20. Yeah. 15. Yeah, that's better. And whenever we're gonna add something, even this number is gonna update automatically. What we can do now probably is going to be, as you can see here, if you check one of them, it goes to the bottom of a screen. Maybe we can do something similar for that. Before displaying the reminders, I can have sorted reminders, which is going to be reminders.sort, and how we're gonna sort them based on the completed. And this way, all the non-completed are on top and the rest are on the bottom. If I complete, they move to the bottom. Perfect. Boolean is not assignable to type reminder. I don't. Yeah, it actually should have two of them. A and B. A and B. But it was working okay. I don't know. And B. Minus. But it actually works, right? Yeah. It kind of works, even if TypeScript doesn't like that we are extracting a Boolean from a Boolean. Are you using Expo? No, for this one, we are not using Expo. All right, so what else can we do in this application? What else, guys, do you want me to do in this application? One important part of this kind of to-do list applications is after you basically reload the application, what you want to do is you want to save the state. So after you close the application and open it again, you want this state to be there. Wait a second. I'm not even using this sorted reminder. I'm doing something bad here. I am right away sorting them. I'm sorting them in place. Vadim, how do you sort arrays in JavaScript? Easy sort method changing the. Yeah, it's actually changing them in place. But it's a bad idea to. Okay, to sort elements in an array without mutating the original array, we need to use toSorted. Okay. It's bad idea to mutate the state. So let's use the toSorted and then get these sorted reminders and use them in the flat list. It's not working. toSorted. Reminder to sorter is not a function. Is this something very new? It might be, yeah. If that is not working, we can always create a copy of these reminders and sort them. Let's do it like this. Yeah, now it works. So first we created a copy and then we sorted that array that is a copy of our state. Awesome. The problem is that now we're changing the index of our items. So it's a bit bad because, as you can see here, I'm pressing on the second item, but it thinks that I'm pressing on the first one just because the index is changing. So it will be a better idea if we are not using indexes, but if we're using, I don't know, whole items, or maybe like the best way is going to be to use IDs, but in our case, we do not have IDs. So maybe I can do let's first of all find the index of the reminder that has this. Maybe I'm gonna search by title and then use the index. Now yeah, now it works. So as I was saying, the next step is, let me git add. Come on, git add, git commit -m. The next step is to make this application persist data, and whenever we close it and open it again, I don't want to lose access to my existing reminders. So for that, we can use async storage, and async storage is a library. React Native async storage is a library that allows us to write to the storage of our device. And this async storage, if we look here, the first thing that it says supported platforms, iOS, Android, but also macOS. So I haven't tried it, but let's give it a try together. And because they say that it supports macOS, I suspect that it should work out of the box. So let's get started by installing React Native Async Storage. Here is their website. Let's install. For iOS, we're gonna need to do npx pod install. For macOS, I think it should work out of the box. So if I'm gonna do npx pod install, and let's go ahead and start using it. So the API of async storage is quite easy. We have a set item and the get item. So let's go ahead and import it. And let's copy this to our data, just in order to save a bit of time. So somewhere in our application, let's have this store data, and also actually we're gonna need to stringify it, so it's better to take the second one. And reading the data, we can do it here in get data. I think we can even leave the storage key as it is, or you can update it to, I don't know, reminders, and here as well, reminders. So store data. When should we store data? I would say whenever our reminders array is changed, we need to make sure that we save that on the device. So let's add a use effect that will say if that will be called every time we update the reminders, and what it will do is it will save data, store data, reminders, like this. And native module is null. Maybe we have to restart it. Let's try to do npm run mac. What again? That's interesting. Let's try to close it completely and try to run it again. Native module sync is null. You know what? I'm thinking maybe the command. I'm gonna close this one. Come on, close. Maybe the command that we ran npx pod install, maybe it only installed it in the iOS directory. So let's manually install this by going to cd macOS, and here let's run pod install. Yes, as we can see, it installed with green the React Native Safe Area context and React Native storage. And now I can go back with cd here and do npm run mac. Come on. Build failed. Oh, build failed. Let's check the macOS. And here in the installation, they said macOS pod file platform macOS 10.15. Very interesting. To debug these kind of issues, we can open the application in Xcode. So let's try to do that. And from Xcode, I'm gonna do open, and I'm gonna navigate to the project that we are using. So the macOS application, and from the macOS application, find the macOS folder itself, open it up, and here let's open the macOS app XC workspace. Here we can choose which target. So instead of iOS, choose the macOS version, and let's try to press play here to build it. Maybe this one will show us some errors. The same error here. Maybe we can look for some errors on GitHub, but not Windows. We need the macOS one. So why did we change? We added the React Native Async storage. Well, it seems that there is a problem running the async storage on macOS. Or there is some issues with my configuration of pods and so on, because it has been acting up badly. What if I move this one to a new branch? Add everything here. Move back to main. And let's see if we can run it from here. npm run mac. It also fails. But if I do cd macOS and do pod install, try using 10.14 instead of 15 maybe. Not sure. Let me see if the issue was with a pod itself from React Native Async storage. Let's do but maybe it was also coming from us installing the React Native paper, because we didn't do a pod install back then. As you can see, it still fails. What if we try to remove React Native paper? Save React context paper. I broke the project. No. All right. Let's try to uninstall. I don't know. Paper and React Native safe area context. Okay, now let's go to macOS and do npm pod install. Please work. That's my only option. No, it's not working. That's fun. Xcode, what did we break? So here we have our macOS. Building and build failed. React Code Gen macOS. What's that? Maybe it's my M1. Oh, incompatible between Xcode 14.3 and React Native versions prior to 71.6. But thing is that our React Native is a higher version than that. Our React Native is 71.10. What's the latest version of change the development version from build settings? What do you mean? What do you mean? Tell me. Change the development version. the development version. To change it from here, I'm not sure, to be honest, but let's try 10.14. $71. If I'm gonna change the React Native macOS version to 10 like this, and do rm node modules package log, and then if we do npm install, yeah, I'm gonna try all of the cleaning, like clean build folder. We are reinstalling the packages. We're gonna do a fresh pod install. Let's do with npx pod install. And I'm not sure if this pod install is actually targeting the macOS, the npx, because it might only work in for the iOS directory, but let's see. npm run mac. Building. Please work. No, but actually, I think it should, because we were No! Por favor. Select the pod. From Xcode, you mean? Or from where? At this moment, I really want to just start from scratch and just copy all the code that we have there. But, so do you select the pods? This one. But why would I change it to something higher? It's the latest, it's 10. I mean, maybe I can go like 11. I'm not sure if that will change anything. The error was thrown by which pod? It was thrown by the React Native CodeGen something. CodeGen MacOS maybe, or iOS. MacOS. So I should do that here, like selecting this one. And what's up with this pod? How to fix it? Should I do a clean before everything? Did it fail? Yeah, it failed. No, I decreased it. I can go to 11. I don't know. Still fails. What if I try a blank new project and just to see what's the difference? So the second time doing the React init, how long it will take? Let's see. Really hate when this happens. React Native CLI. Why you're like this? Come on. Let's try with plain build. Same. Now, it's too much. Okay, so here what I have to do is I have to open the folder macOS app. From here, what I have to do is cd iOS. Thank you very much for trying to help Faisal. Like, to be honest, I myself give up. Like, bundle exact pod install. I'm just gonna go fresh and see at what step it stops working. Maybe that will help us. I don't know. So here is the new project. We can also run our macOS init here. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna initialize the project. Let's go ahead and do npm start. Let's do npm run mock, but for that we need in the package.json here a new script. Mock that will run React Native, run macOS. Stopped working at the, I think, storage, macOS. In macOS pod file 10. macOS pod file is currently 10.15. Yes, the stream will be available right after we stop it. So as we can see, the application is running as it currently is. I'm gonna go ahead and bring some of the code that we had previously. I'm gonna bring it here. So from app.tsx, let's take everything and bring it to our app.tsx. I'm gonna comment out but no, even like, yeah, we don't have that. I think the only thing that we need to do is to do npm install React Native Safe context and also the React Native paper. If I do right now git status, we see, okay, and if I do now npx pod install, will it install both in Mac and in the iOS directory, or only in the iOS? That's what I'm interested. It's only a thing for the macOS, for the iOS directory. Yeah, only here, as you can see. I'm not sure how the application itself is still working. Because if I do git add, git reminders, and now if I'm gonna try to install the pods inside the macOS folder, and if I do pod install here, will it still gonna run? React Native Safe Area context. Oh, it's running here on the macOS, even though we didn't install pods, because we are not using like any native pods like React Native Safe Area context. And the radio button is the GS side, so that's why it's not complaining. But now if I'm gonna do npm run mac, will it work, please? No, it fails after I install the pods here. So why installing the pods in the macOS directory? Maybe I should do this with cd macOS. Maybe I should do bundle exec pod install. I don't know. I'm having some issues with all of this environment. No, it fails. Can it be because it's M1? All right, so at this moment, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna continue exploring this, and the solution that I'm gonna find to this problem, like why it happens, if I find it, I'm gonna try to put it at the end of our blog post on the website. But yeah, like so far we have managed to build a lot of stuff, with the exceptions of installing some native packages and installing pod for our macOS project. Other than that, everything is working fine, and this application will run both on macOS and also on mobile devices on Android and iOS. So yeah, I'm gonna continue behind the scenes trying to understand like what's the issue with the pods, but I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial nonetheless. And if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel not to miss any future videos. Drop a like and write down in the comments what other projects you would love us to try and experiment. Yes, that was it for today. Take care, guys.